Tired of the same old at business events? Well, this is not the same as last year. The podcast where we blow up the boring and lead the charge into the attendee-first era of business events. I'm Clare Forestier, a business event MC obsessed with transforming audiences from passive observers into dynamic participants at events. Each week we'll challenge the conventions, share actionable tips, and hear from fellow event rebels who are mastering the engagement game. Imagine your attendees begging for more after your next event. That's the magic of prioritising their experience. Ready to ditch the dull and create corporate events your audiences will rave about? Then you've found your tribe. Join the movement. Welcome to Not the Same as Last Year. Hello and welcome back to Not the Same as Last Year. So this week I've been thinking about... Hello and welcome back to Not the Same as Last Year. So this week I've been thinking about education because we know it's a key reason why people have traditionally gone to events, to learn more about their industries and their interests. And indeed, the content part of an event keeps the event planners really busy, right? So how do we deliver content in a way that puts the attendee first? By thinking about the way we learn, the way our brains work. So we therefore need to make events brain friendly. And as this is clearly digging into the psychology again, I think we definitely need an expert here. So it's time to speak to literally my guru here, the event psychologist, Victoria Matey. She's someone whose work literally builds bridges between the science of human behaviour and events. And in fact, her hot topic really is how to make your events brain friendly. And that's ultimately the point of this podcast, not the same as last year, right? And I launched it because I want us all to be making events that put the attendee, their hearts, their minds, their emotions, their brains and their comfort first. I started by asking Victoria how we can change things in our events to make them more brain friendly.
I think the main thing to keep in mind is that when we want to change something, it should not necessarily be about big changes. So it's small things that you can introduce in event design and in event marketing that will make a huge difference for you. And a few common mistakes that I see, and because you, Claire, work with speakers a lot, I guess that would resonate. I think mistake number one is that speakers do not receive any briefing on how to make their content more brain-friendly and how to make the delivery of that content more brain-friendly. And I should probably mention as well that I don't think that brain-friendly presentation means fancy slides and sleek design, right? It can be pretty standard. It can. But if the speaker is aware of the things like attention dynamic, inclusive slides, right, language techniques, this is when even the lecture style can become engaging. And I think giving this brief to speakers before the event is a big mistake, because at the end, when they know all these little things that they can introduce to improve their content, to improve their presentations, to improve their slides, that would be a win-win all around, because that will make their content shine, that will put them into the spotlight, and they will be perceived better by audience. That would be good for the audience itself, because people will learn more, will remember more, and this reflects back on the organizers, right? So the satisfaction with the learning outcomes, with the learning experience is higher. People will praise that, people will remember that, and that might be another reason for them to come back to the event. So it's something that everybody wins from.
I don't want to push back on this because I think that's absolutely vital, and it's something I ask event planners. Give me a chance to talk to the speakers, because if they've not felt comfortable saying this to an illustrious speaker, then it's something I can say. But that is the issue. I think a lot of time what will have happened a lot of times is that they will have got this sought after speaker and they'll be all very deferential. Thank you so much. And you're amazing. And then this event plan, I mean, maybe they're quite young, is not going to say, by the way, could you not do it the way you've always done it and do it our way? So that is a pushback one, isn't it? So it's, I guess, finding the right person, if it's your MC or someone who has the balls to say, the way you've always done it is no longer going to cut the mustard, because that's tough, isn't it?
I think that's one of the most common reasons why organizers don't do that. They sort of feel that they shouldn't ask for more from a speaker, especially if it's a seasoned speaker, right? An experienced speaker. But an experienced speaker doesn't necessarily mean that they are experts in neuroscience or psychology or behavioral science, right? And finding the words and the right approach to explain to them that it will actually be good for them, first of all, because people will be able to connect with the content with this speaker presentation better if it's brain friendly. Explaining that and doing it again and again, that's the only way, actually. Educating speakers and trying to find the right words to say how it will improve the outcomes for speakers.
It's a great
first
one.
of all.
Because it's okay, it might be a little bit hard the first time. You've got to kind of come up with the right words and the right phraseology. But once you've cracked it, you've then got it for all the speakers. What's another thing that people could change so easily?
Another thing I see a lot not being done is facilitating connections between speakers. And I think it's very important because if an event features multiple speakers, they share a connection through the event's overarching theme, right? And by encouraging them to familiarize themselves with each other's content, they can identify and build on common points. And through that, they're creating a seamless narrative throughout the event. And I believe that this will strengthen the experience and also it will foster a cohesive and integrated knowledge environment, emotional environment for the audience.
I think I spoke about that in episode 2, that collaboration is super important between all the people coming to the event, from the suppliers to the speakers to everybody. So they've all talked and collaborated. They've all made great connections. They've all personally benefited. It means they've also been able to come out with potential ways of solving issues or problems that might come up in the event. But also that side that if they've bothered to find out what you're going to be talking about, how they can play in with what they're going to say, where the rest of the agenda fits in. And I do see some speakers ask that. They really want to know, where am I in the agenda? Who's before me? Who's after me?
Yeah.
But others, they're going to turn up with their little stack of slides and they're going to do what they do, regardless of anything else going on. So that's such a good point. And again, it's not hard to set up a few meetings, is it?
No. And then making it a standard practice will make it easier for everyone, because if this is something that everybody does and gets involved in, right, you won't have that much of a pushback, right, from speakers. I think most of them actually are keen on engaging before the event and throughout the event. So you just need to make it a standard practice.
Well, I like that because I talk, obviously, my passion is about attendee first experiences, but, your speakers are also your attendees and they are the advocates for the event. And if they're coming to the event going, wow, loads of attention was paid into my contributions and to me meeting other people, and I feel very welcome and wanted, and I feel like any of my issues have been heard, that you're immediately setting a code for how you expect to treat everybody at the event.
And another mistake that I wanted to share my thoughts about is personalization, fake personalization. If you send a post-event note, or if you do the follow-up with your leads after a trade show, or if you ask to join an event, I think the common mistake is not taking time to properly sort and categorize and kind of find out who you are talking to, right? Because I guess, I'm not the only one who received that kind of message in the past that, Victoria, thank you for visiting our booth, or thank you for attending, and I've never been to. I immediately feel not seen, not noticed. My absence was not noticed. I feel not special when, I get this kind of message, or, I got a personal message through LinkedIn inviting me to an event, and the person, my connection, invited me saying, Victoria, I'd like to personally invite you. And I replied thinking that they meant to start a conversation. I replied with a question, and then they never answered. And I mean, don't start a conversation if you don't intend to engage in it, right? And I know that a lot of organizers go by these nice stats or nice numbers saying that, personalized content gets, I think it's 84% more attention, which is true, but it's what's beyond grabbing attention. It's only about grabbing attention, but you need to maintain it, that first point of contact, right? And to maintain it, to really stay on people's minds, you have to be real. And, doing these fake personalized messages doesn't,
I think you're right. It's very cursory how it's done. I mean, we all get those emails or messages on LinkedIn saying, I see you do this. This is what I can help you with. And you're like, well, I don't do that. So you haven't read what I do. You've just done a keyword search and you've read the word events, and from that you've decided this is my job, which it isn't. And it's that of a bit like, oh, come on, you're going to do half the job, do it properly. So it's like, don't personalize unless you're really going to do it properly, because we are too savvy now. We're aware of it, and it immediately makes us go, well, they don't really care, do they? They don't really want me there.
Fake authenticity and fake personalization does more harm than no personalization at all. This is what I would say. Yeah.
One of the things I often quote you on, which I absolutely love, is that post-event feedback form, which comes through, which is shocking most of the time. And most of us don't fill it in, or if we do, it's very quick. And it's not, half the time you're not even asked about the things that are relevant. So you feel like this is a bit pointless. They've just asked me if I liked the food or whatever. And you always say to ask for advice. And I quote that all the time. I think it's such a brilliant idea, because we feel so good when someone goes, Claire, I'd like your advice. I'm like, okay, I've got time for this. Somebody wants to hear from me. So why is that? Why does it work so well?
Well, because it touches us at a deep level. Whenever we want people to take some action, to respond, whenever we want to reach someone, we need to consider things that are beyond the surface, that go underneath that, those, needs, core needs that everyone has, need to be special or feel special, right? Need to belong. And I think when we ask for advice, we kind of signal to the other side that we think about them as equal experts in this thing, right? What we're asking about. And we ask for their help. And that evokes a lot of feelings and emotions, positive feelings and emotions.
It's very valuable. You feel like you're valued, like you're important to that person.
Absolutely. So we feel valued, we feel seen, we feel like we are part of the process. So it's not like the organizer is on one side and we are on the other side. We are together in this. And then those little powerful, in fact, signals make people take action. Right? In this case, they will reciprocate, they will respond, they will provide really advice, not just, a couple of thoughts, very surface-like opinions, but deep quality feedback. And that's exactly what you're looking for as the organizer.
Yeah. And then the thing is, they've got to use that. If they asked for that in 2023, then 2024's event needs to show, we heard what you said last time and we've done that this time. I think that's frustrating when they don't do it. But also, you could do that really early on in the event, couldn't you? But long before people even arrive, once they've signed up or even expressed interest, you can be saying, okay, you showed interest. You haven't ticked the button yet. You haven't paid for the ticket. May I ask why? Could you share your concerns or issues? And not everybody will, but even one or two would be so useful to know. Why am I sitting on the fence? Well, because you haven't published the agenda yet, or because you haven't included my industry, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do people do
No, I
that?
think
Advise
there
that?
should be a sort of a separate plan for asking for feedback at different points of the attendee journey, before the event, throughout the event, and after the event, right? And I recently talked about, having a secret attendee at an
Secret
event,
attendees, right?
asking questions, because that's exactly how you can get in the moment feedback. And that's a very important one, because people will share something that they won't share afterwards, when they have already post rationalized their feelings
Yeah.
and emotions, right? And when they are sharing some opinions in the moment, it's more likely that they will be more honest and raw, and something that you can gain insight from.
Yeah, I'd love that, Joel. I'd love it if someone said, Claire, come to our event. You can't be MC this time, okay? But we'll give you a little bit of, you can be our secret shopper or our secret event attendee, because it would be so interesting. And I think as well, if you just walk around with a clipboard sometimes and you're invisible at an event, because normally I'm the MC, so people kind of recognize you. But if I'm skulking away thinking, I just wonder what they thought of that session, you can get some really good feedback. So if somebody's listening and they go, well, I like what Victoria had to say. You've suggested a couple of things, maybe a couple more things that would make an event brain friendly, that is not hard for people to do, or a small budget. But what would you think?
What we should remember in the first place is this connection between brains and bodies. And so you need to look after the bodies. And then, someone would say that, oh, well, we do it all the time. That's what the events are. We provide food, we provide, all the logistics stuff, right? But I think looking at that from the psychology perspective, and looking at that as the link to brain-friendly environments and brain-friendly is a kind of a different angle altogether. So what I mean by looking after the bodies is like having a lot of breaks, having more or as much as possible natural light, right? Having less noise, because if you ask people to network, or you expect that they will be networking, and at the same time you're having a very noisy environment, well, people won't do that, right? Because it just, it's not possible to have a meaningful conversation when, the music is so loud, or any other kind of noise, right? And then think about emotional involvement. What do you want them to feel? What kind of emotions, specific emotions, do you want them to feel? What kind of small details you can introduce to make them feel, again, special and valued? And then out of that, we can get more original and creative formats, right? It can be, wellness breaks, networking hikes, musical keynotes, conversation corners. Those are activities that don't require a lot of changes, but at the same time, they are very powerful in terms of the impact on audience perception, on audience engagement. And then another thing that I believe is very important is to spread your event out over time, and focusing on what you do with your audience before the event and after the event. You can do a series of pre-conference events, for example, or you can follow up with some mini post-conference activities. And that might be anything that works for your audience. It creates this cohesive event environment. It makes it a whole, rather than just sporadic points in time where they just register, then they are at the event, and then nothing, right? When you try to create a holistic event environment, then you need to have a continuous relationship with the audience, the event, at the event, and post-event. And that's something that will lead to behavior change. Think about the event as moments in time. actually involving the audience meaningfully and helping them connect meaningfully before the event starts, right? And doing the same after the event, trying to see what kind of things happen at the event that affected them, that impacted them in a way that they do things differently, right? That will actually create this loop, a powerful loop that will bring your attendees back to your event. At the same time, will impact their life and they will start doing things differently as a result of attending the event. And that's the actual power and potential of the events that I see.
Well, no, that makes total sense. And that philosophy makes sense. So how, I know people are going to go, what does someone do to do that? How do you practically say, I want to have this loop that starts and continues so that there's no, we finish and then off we go and nobody pays any attention to us for another 6 months till they try and get us to come to the next event? How do we start and keep that loop going as an event planner?
Well, I think changing the communication plans is the first step. And again, introducing small changes at the pre-event and post-event change. Like, for example, you can do actually all the things that we've just talked about, connecting speakers between themselves before the event starts, right? And then asking different questions at different times for your audience before the event starts and doing the same afterwards. And those small changes and communications here and there that will make a difference and will give you more information about what your audience cares about, what they feel, how they feel about your event at different points in time, right? And so this will provide you with more information, more insight that you can work on.
So I see what you mean. The strategy is going to start, if you just start treating your audience a little bit more like a human being, even before the event and after
Absolutely.
the event, then that little circle you want, this loop, is just going to be easier. And I can totally see that. If someone's asked your opinion and your advice before the event about how you want it to go, and then they're asking for it afterwards about how you want it, you are going to naturally be more inclined to stay in communication with them and to keep being part of the conversation, aren't you?
Yeah. And then, for example, if you want them to network, don't expect them to network at the event. Provide them with the advice before on how they can connect better, right? Try to educate on some communication biases that may prevent them from having effective interaction with someone at the event, right? But you do it before. You kind of do a lot of work before the actual event starts. We've got a lot of discussions on networking right now in the community, right? And I think looking at it from the psychology level perspective is a way to help organize it and helping their audiences make it more effective and change it for the better. I was having a conversation on deep conversations with someone the other day, and there is an interesting research on that. So they examined over about 2,000 participants, and they provided them with prompts to talk about some deep personal things. That was research, right? And those questions included something like, when did you last cry in front of the other person? The results were amazing. So participants were first asked to rate the degree of awkwardness on a scale from 0 to 10. And on average, they rated it as 7. So they felt like that would be very awkward to talk about this kind of stuff, right? But the actual awkwardness level that they experienced was around 4. So similarly, for the level of connection, before the conversation started, they expected a connectedness level of 3, again on a scale from 0 to 10. But the actual connectedness that they experienced was rated as 6, twice as much. And so I think a lot of the things that come from research, from social psychology, can be used, because if you talk to your audience and explain these kind of things in a simple way. You don't need to provide them with research references and stuff like that, but just educating them about those subconscious biases and subconscious motivations that drive their communication, that drive their own behavior in an environment like an event. Then you're helping them to be more effective in communication.
If you've asked them about their networking preferences and they've all come, you can say, look, 90% of you have responded saying you find networking awkward. So this is what we're doing to make it less awkward, but also here's some advice or here's some suggestions or things that we've discovered about human beings that might help you in your, because you've started a conversation initially asking them for their advice, they're going to be more likely to read what you send them next that's responding to it. The thing is, we say this and then we also say we don't want people to get long, crazy questionnaires.
Yeah, talking about communication plans, it's not that you should throw that like in one go, right? You can have 3 registration questions, and then once they register, you send them a lot of communication at different points in time, which will not cause any overwhelm if you do it right. I mean, if it's a balanced communication, if it's not, long reads, just tips that you provide them at some point, then it's gonna work.
Understood. Well, thank you so much. There's so much there. I'm terribly lit today, so huge apologies, everybody. There's so much sun coming in my window. I think my lighting is, but yours is gorgeous, Victoria. So that's all that matters. And anybody who's listening to this on podcast form doesn't care anyway because they can't see us. But if you're watching the YouTube one, there is a slight problem with the lighting today, but not to worry. Victoria, I'm going to share all your information in the show notes so anybody can find out about you. But you are clearly the person to talk to if you want to start really making events that are going to appeal to the brains of your attendees, that are going to make them feel happy and safe. So it's been wonderful to hear from you and to get kind of a little bit of a different view of the way I've been telling people to do things or advising it. I like hearing your very emotional connection there. And it's definitely a psychologist's view. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Amazing stuff, right? Because with just a little thought, you can make really easy changes that will dramatically improve the experience of your attendees. Thanks so much to Victoria there, because she's really shared how it's about forgetting the idea of one and done and just prioritizing brain-friendly experiences. And if you've had any problems getting other people on board with this, to explain why and show them the science. So check out Victoria's website. The link is in the show notes and you can see all the research and how she comes to the views and opinions that she shares. Until next time, when we're going to talk about what to do in events when the proverbial hits the fan. And there you have it. I hope you're inspired to revolutionize the attendee experience at your next event. Ready to dive deeper? Download your free guide, 5 ways to elevate your attendee experience without breaking the bank. The link is in the show notes. Subscribe to Not the Same as Last Year podcast, connect with me, Clare Forestier, on LinkedIn, or visit my YouTube channel for even more tips and insights to make your events a hit with your attendees. Don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback is going to fuel my mission. Stay tuned next week for another episode packed with inspiring ideas and practical strategies to put your attendee first.